Hello there. Welcome back. It's really good to see you. So in this session, we're going to talk about allyship, and specifically, we're going to talk about the relationship between power and privilege and our social location when it comes to our identity. So allyship more broadly is the way in which those of us who may have more power or privilege show up for those who may not. It sounds pretty simple, but in order to really get to the crux of how we show up for others, we first have to do the work to look to ourselves. So when I talk about power and privilege and our social location, what I mean is all the different aspects of our identity. And the closer we are to power, so that's called proximity to power, the closer we are to power in terms of, if I think about my racial identity, so I'm a white woman. So in terms of being white, I have a close proximity to power, but in terms of being a woman, I'm slightly further away than perhaps if I was a man. So this is what we're talking about, the proximity to power. And this covers all of the aspects of our identity. So it's not just a race thing, it's not just a gender thing, it is all aspects of our identity. So whether that be whether we have disabilities or not, whether we, what our age is, how we identify with our sexuality, it covers everything, our wealth status, our social status, the languages that we speak. It's absolutely through every aspect of our identity. So I would encourage you to spend some time, you can do it on Google or we can have a conversation, I'm more than happy, to really get under the skin of the aspects of your own identity and how power and privilege might show up in that space. I do run courses on this, so if you're interested, please contact me using the contact me page or drop me an email directly and we can have a chat about what's going to work for you. And when we think about all of the aspects of our identity, where we arrive at then is our social location. So like I say, my social location on the base of my race is quite close in the proximity to power. It moves outwards slightly when I think about my proximity to power as a woman. But if I were a trans woman, it would be further out still. If I were a Black woman, my proximity as a woman might be in the same place, but my racial proximity would be further out than as a white person. So hopefully that's starting to make some sense to you. So when we start thinking about allyship, it's about acknowledging our own social location and how close we are to that power. And how do we either use our voices to raise the voices of others who don't have that same proximity level, or how do we step back from our position of power to allow them to step up for their own voice? So again, it's really thinking about what is our social location and how are we either using that privilege to lift others up, or how are we devolving that power, giving that power away to allow others to step into that space for their own voices to be heard. So as I say, I do some training sessions on this. I'm more than happy to have more conversation about this, but it's really important to understand that we aren't any one thing. And this is why the social location is so important, because at times I will benefit from my privilege as a white person, but I will be disadvantaged because of the power moves away when I start thinking about being a woman. If as a member of the LGBTQIA community, my power proximity moves further away again. So it's dependent on the identity space that I'm occupying, is absolutely dependent upon my own proximity to power. And that's when we start talking about intersecting identities. So the way in which all the aspects of our identities come together to create who we are as a fully functioning, complex, complicated, wonderful human being. So hopefully that's given you a brief outline of what we mean by allyship. So it's about recognizing where we are in our social location and our proximity to power. And essentially, how do we pass the mic? How do we elevate the voices of others who don't have the same proximity? How do we give them space? How do we make room for them to show up and to be in the same powerful spaces that we are in? It's one of the reasons why I run my training courses, Allyship for Men. It's about really speaking to people who generally occupy the central spaces of power, and how can you learn to be a better ally to everybody around you. So if you've got any questions, I'd really love to hear from you. Please, you can drop it in the comments or you can send me an email, use the contact form, that's great. And I look forward to speaking to you again. Have a really good day. Bye-bye.